What's good, YouTube? It's Justice I used to be paid. Today I'm back with another video. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the man of the hour, the man that everyone wants to talk about, the man that everyone has a million different opinions on, Young Thug, and how recently he's actually started to listen to the fans. But before I get into that, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Do all those things. It helps me out a ton. Now, apparently, Young Thug has recently remembered who he was and why he was famous, because we're actually starting to get more music from Thug. Like, no more well, there's still tweets, but like, we're not talking about the tweets right now. We're not talking about the jail calls right now. We're not talking about another podcast episode or street stuff or who's a rat and who's not, at least not at this very current moment. We're actually getting music. Now, this all started with the leaked song from Young Thug, Closing Arguments, you know, the song that has a whole music video with it, but the song where he's calling, and I quote, "Gunna a rat, Yak a rat, Slug a rat, Woody a rat." And he also says F Obama. That sounds crazy, but there's a guy called YSL Obama. I know it's weird, but whatever. That song came out, and that was really like the first really big piece of music that we had gotten from Young Thug in a very, very long time. And then he followed that up with some new snippets of music that he's been playing in the studio and getting people excited about the possibility of him actually dropping an album, you know, being a musician, his job title. And then he follows that up with a new song, an official release titled Miss My Dogs. Now, this is the song where he is apologizing to everyone, you know, the "Wham, pick up the phone," that song, you know. It came out with an entire music video and everything, and at the end of the video, there was an announcement for the release date of his next project, Scuti, which was supposed to drop months ago. It was supposed to drop around May or something like that, but the release date was Friday, September 19th. Now, apparently that has been pushed back to the 26th. There are some rumors floating around online that it was pushed back due to features being pulled, so I don't know what that means. I don't know if Wham still isn't picking up the phone. Maybe his phone's on D&D. Maybe he went to an island resort where there's no phones allowed. I don't know. All right, we don't know yet. We're just waiting to see what's going on with this album and what's going on with these features. But regardless, Young Thug is finally starting to listen to people, finally listening to the advice that literally everyone on earth has given him since he's came home. You know, I guess he's one of those people that kind of got to put their hand on the stove and feel the heat. They got to get burned before they got to bump their head. Some people just got to bump their head. So now he's finally listening and dropping music. Even Big Bang himself in the interview, straight to Young Thug's face, said, "Where is the music, Slime?" So it seems like we're finally gonna get that. The entire rap world is talking about Young Thug right now. From the jail calls, to the tweets, to the podcast episode, to the snitching allegations, to the interrogation video, his name is everywhere. He's everywhere. And his clips are super, super viral right now.
Hey, nigga. If we go to prison for the rest of our life, whoop de do. We go to prison, nigga. And we fight to get out this bitch. If we beat these folk, whoop de do. We beat them. We go forward.
Young Thug is like the center of the rap news cycle solar system at the moment. Everything orbits and surrounds Young Thug. And even though this isn't like positive attention, this isn't good attention necessarily, people aren't talking about how good of a guy Young Thug is, how great of an artist he is, how much they love him. They're talking about him. And this is probably the most attention that Young Thug has ever gotten in his career, solely focused on him. Like, everyone just talking about him. He's had big moments of attention before, but like, I don't think we've ever seen the entire rap hip-hop news space really focus on Young Thug like this before. Maybe when he first went to jail, but obviously he couldn't do anything with that then. But right now, it really is up for Young Thug, and he's on fire. He's hot. He's a hot name. His interview did multiple millions of views in the first like day or so. Anything with Young Thug's name on it is going viral. It's trending. You make a video with Young Thug's name on it, you're bound to get more views than you regularly do. So he's a very, very hot commodity right now, which is why he's restarting his rollout, because this rollout for this album started in like May. Scuti was being rumored upon like at the beginning of this year. But the difference between then and now with Scuti is that then he was cold. Young Thug was ice cold back then when he was really starting that Scuti rollout, and he was really trying to get into it and was really actually like a few days away from releasing the album before he got it pushed back. He was ice cold. Now, before the album came out, he released the song Money on Money with Future, and that song was cool. You know, it had like a shout out to Otis and all that stuff in it, but like, it didn't really do much. It didn't really do much outside of like that first week where it blew up, had some numbers on YouTube, but outside of that single, you know, Young Thug was pretty cold. And I think that if he would have dropped his album back then in May, he would have flopped. I really do believe that. I really do think he probably would have sold like maybe 60K. which is, that's not terrible numbers, but for somebody like Young Thug and how long he's been in the game and how popular he is, that is a bit low. I think that album would have went off like a fart in the wind and it just would have disappeared. It would have came out. Some people would have talked about it. And if it was popular, I mean, if it was good, like really good, of course it would have became popular afterwards. But in the moment of when he was going to drop it, there was not a lot of anticipation, not a lot of hype, not that many people cared. So I guess when we're looking at this album in the perspective of like what it will do for Young Thug's career, the numbers, the money it'll make, all of this stuff happening to Thug, low-key might have been a blessing in disguise because it completely heated his name back up. People are excited to hear what he has to say, and he didn't really have to do much of anything besides, I guess, get exposed for pillow talking on a jail call. But regardless, going into this project, though, I am pretty excited to hear what this is going to sound like. For one, because Young Thug is one of my favorite rappers, but I also don't feed into the narrative that he's washed. People have started to say that he's washed, mostly due to Business is Business, the album that he released when he was behind bars. But I don't really think that's a fair measurement of somebody as an artist, their album, when they're not able to actually have any sort of creative control with it, in terms of them specifically. Of course, he picked some of the features and was telling people, hey, I want you to send a feature in, but that wasn't really a Thug album in the sense of what we would get when he's free. So I think it's kind of a bit unfair to judge him off of the quality of that album when, he's behind bars. The last album that Young Thug did drop, however, when he was actually a free man, was Punk. And I absolutely love that album. That's one of my favorite Thug albums, actually. I really do enjoy that album. So for me, Young Thug's definitely not washed. I will say, though, when he came out of jail and Dumb, Dumb and Dumber dropped that song with Lil Baby and Future, I wasn't moved. It was a basic performance. It was, not bad, but I wasn't going crazy off that. And then the follow-up with Money on Money, again, another decent song, nothing crazy. So, I mean, if you're judging based off those two songs that he released when he came home, I could see you kind of starting to write him off, I guess, but I just don't feel like that's truly representative of Young Thug as an artist, especially recently over the last 5 years or so, but over his entire career, it's just not really representative of who he has been. So I don't think that those two songs will determine who he will be when he drops this album. And recently, he has started to drop some snippets online. Shanae, that song was the first one to really come out. And I remember hearing that a few months ago. And it was before we really heard any of the production really, or the mixing wasn't all the way there. I don't really remember what was up with the snippet, but it sounded really bad. That Shanae, it sounded really, really bad a few months ago. I'm not gonna lie. When I heard that, I was like, maybe Young Thug is washed. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm the one who's in denial. But recently, more and more snippets have came out from that song, and I'm not gonna lie, it sounds pretty good. It sounds pretty good. So that snippet actually has given me a little bit of hope. Another one is the Whoop-De-Doo snippet. Now, people are kind of split on this one. A lot of people have kind of turned around on the Shanae one and thought nah, that song's actually fire. The Whoop-De-Doo snippet has people split pretty much 50-50. I think it's fire. That song sounds like classic Thug. That is it's so whimsical and fun that sounds like a classic Young Thug song right there. So for some of the snippets that have came out recently, if you're not really feeling it, I can understand it personally because everybody's different. So I could see why you wouldn't like it. But also at the same time, this is very much Young Thug's type of music. So you might just not be that big of a fan of Young Thug as well if you hear something like Shanae and you're just immediately turned off by it, because that's some classic Thug stuff. Now, I will say this as well. The leaked song, Closing Arguments, that song is fire. I don't understand how that song hasn't gotten more attention recently on social media, because I think that song is gas. I think Young Thug snaps on the verses. I think the bars hit. I think that specifically the ending of the song is amazing, where he starts singing, where he says, he got a fat mama. All that stuff is fire. Closing Arguments, I've had that on repeat pretty much ever since it was leaked, let's just say. So in terms of that song as well, it's getting me excited. I don't think that song will ever be on the album. I don't think it'll ever be officially released, because that's gotta be a parole violation. That's gotta be, right? But that song is hard. Now, when we talk about Miss My Dogs, I'm not really feeling that one. I mean, it's cool. Again, it ain't the worst thing in the world. But the Wham! Pick Up the Phone, I just can't really get behind that. I'm not gonna lie. But I will say it's not terrible. But the other stuff, the Shanae snippet, the Whoop-De-Doo snippet, and the Closing Arguments, fire to me. I'm liking all. Also, that song with Lil Baby that was leaked, where they're using the deep voice. I know that's supposed to be on Lil Baby's album, or at least it was going to be on Lil Baby's album. That song is fire as well. So overall, pretty much everything that I've gotten from Young Thug musically since this whole drama has broken out has gotten me excited for this album. One of the more interesting things to monitor with this new Young Thug album is what the features will look like on the project, because we're already hearing rumors that the album was pushed back due to people removing their features from the album. We don't know how true that is. That might just be people online talking, but still, that is something that's floating out there. And Young Thug is notorious for how much he networks in the industry. Like, if you've been popping over the last 10 years or so in rap at any point in time, you have a song with Young Thug. And if you don't have a song with Young Thug over the last 10 years or so, I don't know if you were really popping like that. Like, obviously I'm gassing it, but like, that's just the type of artist that Thug is. He works with everybody. He loves to make connections all over the industry. So if we get to this album and Drake isn't there, if Future isn't there, if Savage isn't there, if Wham isn't there, if Wham isn't there, then I think that might actually speak a lot to where he stands with these people after this entire situation of drama and controversy and these leaked calls, because there is no way that on Young Thug's return album from jail, he's not going to be reaching out to these guys for features. He was reaching out to people for features from behind bars. He's using his time on the jail phone to call people and say, hey, bro, send in his feature. Now, personally, I don't think that Young Thug necessarily needs all these features to make a good album. I don't think that that's necessary, but we just know the type of guy that Young Thug is, so that's probably going to be the case if he's actually on good terms with all of these people. And if we get to this album and there's only a handful of features, 3 or 4, and they're like smaller YSL artists who, are signed to the label, that might be a bad sign, bro. That might be a pretty bad sign in terms of where he ends up standing with all of these people who, he's been close with over the last few years or so. Honestly, maybe if the album has no features, that might mean the same thing, but I feel like him having no features on the album might be a better sign than him having, 2 or 3 and they're just, super small YSL guys. I think if that's the case for this project, then he really might have ended up burning a lot of those bridges that he spent the last decade of his life trying to build. When we look back on the Young Thug saga from the summer of 2025, in the next few months to few years, how people judged this situation with Young Thug and his actions will be heavily influenced by this album. If I've said it once, I'll say it again. The best PR for any musician in the world is great music. It doesn't really matter what you've done. How people judge you will be based on your music to a certain extent. Obviously, if you're doing some wild stuff, then, that's different. But for the most part, that's the case. This album is legacy defining for Young Thug. Everything right now points to the collapse of Young Thug. Going from a fan favorite to super hated. Going from this solid street dude with this solid reputation to being called a snitch. Going from one of the greatest networkers in the rap game over the last decade or so to a guy who might not be able to get a feature anymore from the people he's called brother over the last decade or so. If all of this is accompanied by an album that is considered weak or isn't considered very good, then this might very well be the end of Young Thug's run of relevancy. Every single rapper has their day where their relevancy goes away and they fall into the background to pretty much never be heard from again, at least in a major way. And Young Thug's been going for a decade now, but everything right now seems to be pointing towards this being the possibility, and the masses kind of want to see the fall of Young Thug. It might sound hyperbolic for me to say that, we might be reaching the end of Young Thug's run as a super relevant rapper, but we really got to look at what's going on here. Young Thug has been relevant for like a decade now in the rap game, getting close to over a decade, and that's just not something that happens typically. Most rappers don't have a run as a relevant rapper for 10 years. That's just not really a thing that happens very often, so he's already in an extraordinary air by lasting for this long. He could have fallen off at any point if we're looking at the average rapper by now. And I know that we like to look at Drake and look at him being super relevant for 15 years and being, the #1 rapper in the game for around 13 years now, but that's just not the norm. So all of this happening at this point in time and everyone kind of wanting to see, kind of rooting for Young Thug to fall, it wouldn't be ridiculous for it to happen. However, I see this as an opportunity for Young Thug. Everyone's eyes are on him. And personally, if you're going to ask me, like for a prediction, do I think that this album will be good? I'm going to say yes. Now, I'm biased. I am a Young Thug fan. I admit that. So it's not like I'm, an outsider looking in like, I don't know, man. I like Young Thug's music a lot already, so I think that he's going to drop a good album. But from what I've heard as well, the Shanae snippet to the Whoop-De-Doo to Closing Arguments, even the leaked song with Lil Baby, I think that this album's going to be fairly good. And maybe we're not moving to the end of Young Thug. Maybe we're just moving into a new era for Thug in his career. One where he's not as connected to the rest of the industry. One where you don't open every single trap album and see a mandatory Thug feature with, Future and all that stuff. Maybe that's just where we're going, where, the kind of rap fraternity, that Atlanta fraternity, is split and broken, and we just don't really see that anymore. And maybe some of the people who, Young Thug was giving the sauce to start to look a little bit lost when he's not in their corner. I don't know. According to Young Thug, he was giving people the sauce. He was giving game. I'm just quoting him, but still, maybe this isn't the end of an era for Young Thug in the sense of his career. Maybe this is just the end of an era where he's going to have to move on to bigger and better things, where he's a lot more alone, and maybe just starting to restart in the process of building some newer artists, some artists who are signed to YSL who we don't really know of at the moment. But regardless, that's going to be the end of my video. If you made it this far, I greatly, greatly appreciate you. Again, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. It helps me out a ton. I go by the name of Pay. Peace.